The halls of the French National Assembly were thick with tension yesterday. You could really feel history happening as lawmakers prepared to vote a vote that would decide the government's fate. Prime Minister François Bayrou, a 74-year-old experienced politician, stood in front of them. His 9 months in charge were hanging by a thread. He had risked his political future by asking for a vote of confidence. It was a desperate attempt to push through a budget plan almost no one liked, a huge gamble in a parliament already divided and unfriendly. The final count was a shocking, clear rejection of Bayrou and his plans. 364 members voted against the government. 194 supported it, both far from the 280 votes needed to keep the government standing, a big hit to President Emmanuel Macron's power. It pushed France deeper into political trouble. Prime Minister Bayrou is expected to formally give his resignation to President Macron at the Élysée Palace this morning. His short, troubled time as Prime Minister will end. At the heart of the government's fall, Prime Minister Bayrou's bold, controversial budget plan. He wanted to cut 44 billion euros, about $51 billion, from next year's spending. This wasn't a small adjustment, it was an aggressive plan to tackle rising debt and deficit. Public debt, 3.346 trillion euros. That's 114% of GDP, puts France among the highest debt EU countries. Budget deficit last year, 5.8% of GDP, almost double the EU's 3% limit that clashes with European partners and alarms markets. Bayrou said the cuts were a necessary evil, but the argument failed in France, where the social safety net and services are seen as essentials. It united different political groups against a common enemy. Proof the government was out of touch. The current problem isn't a sudden storm, but something that was bound to happen because of a political gamble that went very wrong. The problems we see today started in June 2024, when President Macron, frustrated by a parliament that couldn't agree on anything, made the surprising decision to close the National Assembly and call for quick new elections. He hoped the French people would give his middle ground group a clear and strong majority, making it easier for him to push through his plans. Instead of a stronger mandate, the election gave Macron his worst nightmare, a more divided parliament. For the first time in modern French history, no party had a working majority. Macron's middle ground group became weaker. Far-right National Rally, Marine Le Pen, left-wing NUPES alliance, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, a parliament where no one was in charge. 3 competing groups, none able to govern alone. Macron has been forced into weak minority governments, barely surviving day to day, moving from one crisis to the next. The political moves happening inside the fancy halls of Parliament are being mirrored by a growing wave of anger across the country. The opposition to Bayrou's austerity plan goes beyond just politicians. Union leaders are gearing up for a big fight, and the government's fall has made them bolder. Jean-Luc Mélenchon celebrated on social media. Bayrou has fallen. Victory and relief for the people. He then targeted the president. Macron is on the front line facing the people. He too must go. On the other side, Marine Le Pen called for Macron to go, saying the real fresh start would be the president's resignation. She demanded new elections so the country can choose, are both using the crisis to cast themselves as the people's true voice against a failing establishment. Beyond government buildings, public patience is running out. Years of economic hardship, controversial reforms, major union federations are mobilizing members for a huge day of strikes and street protests on September 18th, promising to bring the country to a standstill. What happened right after the government fell has made financial markets nervous. The interest rates on French government bonds have gone up a lot. In a worrying sign, France's borrowing costs are now higher than those of Spain, Portugal, Greece, countries that were at the center of the Eurozone's government debt crisis 10 years ago. This market reaction is a clear warning that investors are losing faith in where France is headed politically and economically. President Macron now finds himself in a tough and very limited position. No clear replacement has shown up who could get a stable majority in the National Assembly. Reaching out to the moderate right is an option, but it would mean big policy changes that could upset his own supporters. Opposition calls for Macron to close Parliament and call another quick election are getting louder, but it's a very risky choice. A new election could strengthen the far right or the far left, possibly giving one of them a majority and forcing Macron to share power with an unfriendly prime minister. The country seems set for political paralysis, likely to continue until the planned presidential and legislative elections in 2027.